name is Yagami from the YouTube channel All Things Yagami. Thank you for having me here. Today we'll look into jump scares in the horror film genre. Jump scares aren't normally something one would compliment. Most of the time they end up relying too much on stereotypical methods of scaring us. The standard fake out, the short and useless tension build, and the loud sounds.
Oh god.
Rarely does a jump scare manage to leap out of these kinds of cliches. For example, let me bring a common trope in jump scares. There is a slow but increasingly loud music build-up as someone approaches a dark corner. And surprise! No one's there. It's all just kidding. A sudden extremely loud sound blasts its way into your ears, and you fall to the floor in immense pain and feel that your eardrums have just burst into flames. The theater screams as well, followed by awkward laughter. By the next day, everyone is doing fine. So why isn't this effective? While it's tempting to say the jump scares are always bad and are cheap, which admittedly is partially true, there is more to it than just that. The use of jump scares goes back all the way to horror roots, so why isn't it working nowadays? This is when we notice the issue, the repetitiveness. Overuse have plagued jump scares today, and the trope I've just pointed out basically proves it. How does a jump scare become more than a one-time scare? How do films like Silence of the Lambs, with absolutely zero jump scares, manage to terrify so well, while a film filled with jump scares like The Nun end up being boring pieces of junk of a film? That's when it hits. Jump scares aren't the core of the terror. The core of the terror is the story and the context. That's how Silence gets its terror from. It is the fear of Hannibal Lecter. You see everything coming, but it still hits you like a wrecking ball. When you see his angel layout following his escape, it is a fantastic sequence that shows you terror without necessarily making you jump and scream.
Oh god.
The jump scare exists only to complement the story and can only be effective if it isn't done in a way that's been done a million times before. Therefore, let's take a look at a rather infamous jump scare, one that I consider one of the greatest in all film. This is the jump scare that takes place in The Exorcist 3, directed by William Peter Blatty, who wrote the first Exorcist book and directed the first classic. While the second Exorcist was an absolute dumpster fire, people were still interested in what Blatty could bring to the franchise following the wreck left by William Goodhart. I'm going to spoil the plot, so while it isn't necessary for you to watch the film, since it isn't really that good due to a weak ending, Blatty was forced to add an exorcism scene at the end. I'm still slapping a spoiler warning. Essentially, the film follows the ghost of a murderer called the Jiminy Killer, possessing various old folks at a hospital, using their bodies to murder various people. In this specific scene, the nurse walks into a seemingly empty hospital room. For the sake of giving the full effect, I'm going to be attaching the important moments of the scene, starting from when the nurse goes into the hospital room,
hell do you want?
Sir, I'm very sorry.
Bad enough you wake me up at 5:30 for breakfast.
Sir, I'm sorry.
You're sorry. I think you do this on purpose. What's your name? I'm going to report you.
My name is Amy Keating. Good night.
Angels of mercy, horse shit.
Yes, I'm fine. I'm just a little jumpy. That's all.
Good.
Well, there it is. What I personally see as one of the greatest jump scares in horror and one of my favorite moments of the genre. Overall, what we see here is an ingenious form of tension building and suspense without relying too much on built-up, creepy music. One of the moments that makes this moment so cleverly done is the use of a decoy jump scare with the harmless old man on the bed that shocks the nurse. The loud sound that scares you is from the nurse's own scream, and on a first viewing, this is seen as a very cheap joke and a jump scare that's poorly done and clumsy. This is an immediate distraction from the true jump scare that will come later, used as a diffusion for the tension in order to lure the viewers into a false sense of security. Playing it off as a joke helps makes the scene's final impact all the more surprising. We also have the manipulation of the human attention span being used here. As you probably noticed, the length of the clip. This is immensely effective, as the drawn-out length is fantastic compared to the quick, single-scene moments of the films like The Nun. The length also tests many attention spans, lowering the tension. After all, you can only hold your breath for so long, which makes this jump scare all the more chilling and shocking. Moving on into that fantastic long hallway shot, let's take a look at what makes this moment so fantastic. Firstly, she goes into the room before coming out, which is when we expect the jump scare to happen. Classic cliches often have the hero getting jump scared as they enter the room. This jump scare immediately breaks tradition by having it occur behind the nurse, after she leaves the room with the door she just locked. This is further complemented by having the shot linger on the hallway for over 50 seconds. It indicates that something is going to happen, but since it takes a while and a fake out just occurred before, it leaves the viewer in a state of confusion. Is something going to happen? But wasn't it a joke jump scare before? What's going on? It makes you sense something is going to happen, but you can't judge its nature. This is further complemented by the usage of characters in the background, a perfect distraction and a decoy to create a false sense of security. The security guards walk back and forth, on screen and off screen, furthering the confusion and unnerving build-up while still not completely making these threats' existence obvious. By having nearby humans, it creates the assumption that the nurse will be safe, for now. And the jumpscare itself defies the cliché of having the victim be alone. This is helped by the fact that the hospital remains the same, with no light flickerings or changes. The jumpscare itself is terrifying. Let's replay it. We see that the figure in white comes very rapidly with fast strides, like an angry person taking large steps towards you. It raises the large scissor things up to her neck level and is clearly walking faster than her. The nurse doesn't even notice the figure's presence, adding to the creep factor. The figure is also all in white, like a sheet ghost, yet it still manages to frighten us thanks to the moment's suddenness. What I found to be some of the cleverest ways used to amplify the scare factor here would be the fast zooming shot and the music. The most famous usage of zoom-ins would probably be in The Shining. For example, the bear blowjob thing. It's quite similar, with a zoom through the hallway, and is a clever way to create more surprise while not relying on flashing lights or dark corners. It creates a sense of suddenness and claustrophobia as our visual space is tightened and our eyes are drawn to the sudden figure coming out of the door. This is combined with the sound, which I found to be one of the most terrifying and haunting sounds I've ever heard. An excellent sound effect that scares following a complete lack of music. While loud sounds are often used to scare simply with their loudness, in various film jump scares, the one used here complements the slow build-up. If this sound was attached to a poorly done jump scare, it wouldn't have the same effect due to their repetitive and familiar nature. It's like a bonus attachment that only works if the actual scene has quality. And then, the aftermath. Instead of relying on gore or shock, we instead get a quick shot of a headless statue of Jesus, a fantastic way to show the aftermath of the murder, with symbolism linking to the religious imagery of the entire film, and then cut to the body bag. Exorcist 3 is by no means a perfect film, but this scene can't be described as a spotless, beautiful and terrifying piece of cinematography. This moment is just one example of what the best of horror can truly be.